Hi, this is Jim from Safety Wars. Before we start the program, I want to make sure everyone understands that we often talk about OSHA and EPA citations, along with some other regulatory actions from other agencies, legal cases, and criminal activity. Everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Proposed fines are exactly that, and they are often litigated, reduced, or vacated. We use available public records, news accounts, and press releases. We cannot warranty or guarantee the details of any of the stories we share, since we are not directly involved with these stories, at least not most of the time. Enjoy the show.
This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
And welcome to Safety Wars. Sorry about that. I rearranged the buttons on my board here, and suddenly I forgot how to use it. That's okay. Welcome to Season 3 of Safety Wars. And it's Safety Wars for Friday, March 10th, 2023. We're talking to you. I'm talking to you from the border of liberty and prosperity and the highway to the north. People say, well, what's the border of liberty and prosperity? You're not there yet. We're right on the border. Yeah, well, we're in Rockland County, New York, broadcasting from Clarkstown, New York. And right due south from me is New Jersey, whose state motto is liberty and prosperity. We also have several highways that go north here, including the New York Thruway, Route 95 not too far away, and the Palisades Parkway. Pardon me. Had an unusual thing happen to me this afternoon. Really unusual. So I'm driving home from a client facility. By the way, we do equipment calibrations here, too. So give us a call at 845-269-5772 if you want to work with us. So I'm on the way home, and I see this young woman, maybe 10, 11 years old, in the center median of the Palisades Interstate Parkway, northbound, just past exit 10. I'm thinking, what is this child doing there? So we got into the idea, well, do I call 911 or not? Do I call 911 or not? So I said, yeah, let me call 911. I don't know what her situation is. I don't know what's happening or anything else. So what I need to do is find out. I'll give on 911 a call, let the authorities handle it, because you never know. It might be a runaway. It may be someone who's hurt. And maybe someone, we have Route 59 here in Rockland County, one of the capitals in the Northeast, because we're right outside New York City for child trafficking and other not so nice things. I mean, I was in a hotel. I was working for a company. They hired me to do some training for them. They put us out in a hotel. And I was in a hotel, and there were people during one of the breaks, we go out and say, yeah, okay, let's go out, take a couple minutes, stretch our legs, go into the lobby. They had some coffee there and everything else. And there were people in there trying to choreograph, we'll just say, some not so nice movies. I was like, man. So the newspapers are right. All different types of illegal crap going on over here in Rockland County. So right on the Route 59 corridor with all the seedy hotels. But anyway, trying to choreograph a movie, that you get the idea. Anyway, so I know, and Jay Allen is probably saying, man, where's he going with this, man? So anyway, we're on season 3. I was promoting it on Monday's program. I did not upload Monday's program because I was laughing too hard from some of the things that we were on here talking about, specifically Simple Sabotage Field Manual from the Office of Strategic Services, which is an authentic manual that was put out during World War II, and know what, we're going to discuss it again today because I was laughing too hard for this to do it with a straight face. So, as everyone knows, my father passed away last year, and this is the kind of document, the kind of stuff that we used to read together, and we'd get a huge laugh. And it's hard finding this stuff like this and similar publications. So what are we going to be doing here for season 3? First of all, we're going to be putting this more on video, right? And we'll put this simulcast right on YouTube and some of the other places, right? What happens is I do this program 8 o'clock at night Eastern time, which is, I know it's 5 o'clock drive time on the West Coast. Long story short, I look like crap when it comes down to 9 o'clock at night. Eyes with bags, the whole thing. So we're going to do more of that, but, we'll see how it goes. So now I get comments all the time. Jim, at the beginning of your podcast 2 years ago, we're in our third year here. You covered a lot of real small articles and things of that nature. Now, so let's read some of them off to you, exactly what these were. Withholding information, right? The dangers of having information withheld from you. Don't let others make your decisions. Disaster preparedness, psychopaths in the workplace. The not so nice people who work in procurement. The safety stump speech. Know what to say ahead of time. Respect, right? Is respect your problem? Don't be quick to fire someone. One of my favorite cultural pushback strategies faced by safety professionals. Gaslighting. Commentary on the safety triangle. And going on, safety in HR, understanding the other person. You get the idea. And the safety professional's dilemma, how do we manage vaxxed versus unvaxxed? I think we're going to keep that up. Some of these I took down because of COVID. And looking back at them, I said, you know what? Probably need to come down. About perseverance with this and everything else. But we're going to go back and revisit some of these topics out there. So I'm going to go and we're going to talk about the Simple Sabotage Field Manual again. We did it on Monday. I was laughing so hard. It's kind of, it's pretty funny. One of those things I'll do. I'll try to do this with a straight face because I explained this like in 2 training classes this week. And, so this is basically it. This was issued in January 1944, was declassified in 2008, and it was specifically in support of D-Day. D-Day is the invasion of Europe across the English Channel by Allied forces, June 6th into June 7th. And then, if you ever saw the movie Saving Private Ryan, that's what it was. And what the idea was they knew that this was going to be an invasion, and they knew that they had people in Europe, right? All of Europe, specifically Nazi Germany, Vichy France, some of the other countries that did not want to help the Nazis, did not want to help Hitler. So what they did was they came up with a 20-page book here, pamphlet, on how to sabotage the war machine in Germany. And I'm going to read through this. And it's going to be a little long, but if you're a history buff, this is somewhere to go. And I'm going to have some questions at the end because this was some of the feedback that I received back. So the purpose of this paper, I'm reading right from it. It's in 5 parts, right? Intro and, this and that. Some of this stuff is dated, like how to sabotage a telegraph or a switchboard, right? So, some of it's dated. However, we'll let this build. You're going to know where I'm going here, especially if you listen on Monday live. The purpose of this paper is to characterize simple sabotage, to outline its possible effects, and to present suggestions for inciting and executing it. Right. So this was all written issued in January 1944. D-Day was June 6th of the same year, and June 7th. Sabotage varies from highly technical coup de main acts that require detailed planning and thus the use of specially trained operatives to innumerable simple acts which the ordinary individual citizen saboteur can perform. So we're worried about, and with this document, the citizen saboteur. So this paper is primarily concerned with that. Simple sabotage does not require specially prepared tools or equipment. It is executed by an ordinary citizen who may or may not act individually and without the necessity for active connection with an organized group. and it is carried out in such a way as to involve the minimum danger of injury, detection, and reprisal. Where destruction is involved, the weapons of the citizen saboteur are salt, nails, candles, pebbles, thread, or any other materials he might normally be expected to possess as a householder or as a worker in his particular occupation. His arsenal is the kitchen shelf, the trash pile, his own unusual kit of tools and supplies. The targets of his sabotage are usually objects to which he has normal and inconspicuous access in every day. A second type of simple sabotage requires no destructive tools whatsoever and produces physical damage, if any, by highly indirect means. It is based on universal opportunities to make faulty decisions, to adopt non-cooperative attitudes, and to induce others to follow suit. Making a faulty decision may be simply a matter of placing tools in one spot or another, blah, blah, blah. Okay, good. This type of activity, sometimes referred to as the human element, sound familiar? Is frequently responsible for accidents, delays, and general obstruction, even under normal conditions. Right? And the potential saboteur should discover what types of faulty decisions and non-cooperation are normally found in his kind of work and should then devise his sabotage as to enlarge the margin for error. And this is what the whole thing, the possible effects, section 2. Acts of simple sabotage multiplied by thousands of citizen saboteurs can be effective weapons against the enemy. Sound familiar? Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals. Simple sabotage may have secondary results of more or less value. Widespread practice of simple sabotage will harness and demoralize enemy administrators and police. And section 3 is motivating, right? We with that, and let's go. I have this all printed out here. And where did I find this? Elon Musk tweeted this out last Sunday night, and I did a little bit of research. And I don't want to give people ideas on what to do here because you have crazy people. We have one story later on if we get to it on what they do, what certain crazy people do. So here we have to sabotage water and miscellaneous things. Ruin warehouse stock by setting the automatic sprinkler system to work. Forget to provide paper in the toilets. Put tightly rolled paper, hair, and other obstructions in the water system. And it tells you how to do that. And now we're going to talk about organizations and other things coming up. So here we go. I am turning the pages here. And it talks about railways, how to mining, right? Transportation. How to sabotage transportation. We're talking about roads. Damage to roads is slow and therefore impractical as a D-Day or near D-Day activity. They're called a D-Day before it was D-Day. Right? Change signposts at intersections and forks. The enemy will go the wrong way, and it may be miles before he discovers his mistakes. In areas where traffic is composed primarily of enemy autos, trucks, and motor convoys of various kinds, remove dangerous signals from curves and intersections. When the enemy asks for directions, give him wrong information. If you can start damage to a heavily traveled road, passing traffic and the elements will do the rest. All right? And it goes on and on. So that's the kind of stuff. So this is a section that Elon Musk put out. And it was general interference with organizations and productions from page 28. By the way, the Office of Strategic Services was the forerunner to the Central Intelligence Agency. Number 1, insist on doing everything through channels. Never permit shortcuts to be taken in order to expedite decisions. Make speeches. Talk as frequently as possible and at great length. Illustrate your points by long anecdotes and accounts of personal experiences. Sounds like one of my safety meetings, but never hesitate to make a few appropriate patriotic comments. When possible, refer all matters to committees for further study and consideration. Attempt to make the committees as large as possible, never less than 5. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. Haggle over precise wordings of communications, minutes, and resolutions. Refer back to matters decided upon at the last meeting and attempt to reopen the question of the advisability of that decision. Advocate caution. Be reasonable and urge your fellow conferees to be reasonable and avoid haste, which might result in embarrassments or difficulties later on. Be worried about the propriety of any decision. Raise the question of whether such action as is contemplated lies within the jurisdiction of the group or whether it might conflict with the policy of some higher echelon. Okay, this is what Elon Musk tweeted out on Sunday. Have you been watching what's going on with Twitter and everything this week? I kind of like, okay, maybe it is conspiratorial. I know the other wars programs, right, talk about conspiracies, but what's going on in his organization that he would bring this up? That's my question. And I think that's a valid question here with this. Number one. Number two, how many of us have been on committees? And we see people don't want to be there often, on these committees or these, call them what they want, working groups, committees, whatever. And they use this strategy. How's that? I'm not saying everyone's at the sabotage, but what impacts your meetings on this? So you're doing a safety meeting. Ever do a safety meeting and people talk over you or interrupt you and talk about all this stuff that happens? Maybe you're the safety. Maybe you're doing this, right? If you're doing the safety meeting or the training, right? Hey, or how about this? We're not going to make this decision now, so we're going to punt it to somebody else who knows. Punt it to another thing. Oh, and by the way, that other committee only meets once a month. Does that happen? So what happens is they're trying to run out the clock. How does this happen also? Let's say that you have winter coming up and you have winter safety hazards. And they say, well, and it's October, you bring it up. Every October 17th, my organizations that I work with get a email from me. Winter is coming up. Why October 17th? 16th is my birthday, so I remember it's 17th easy day. And I do it at home, too. What do we need to get ready for winter? This winter was a flop. I mean, yeah, we had a couple of snowstorms up here in Rockland County, but nothing to write home about. What do we do? I've been in an organization. Well, we're going to worry about that next month. Well, November, it might be hard to get some of the equipment you need for snow removal or PPE and everything else. And if you're in the Midwest, winter is already there, October 17th. I was in Montana and we got 2.5 foot of snow one year when I was there on my birthday. Bring up irrelevant issues as frequently as possible. You're in a meeting, people bring up irrelevant issues, right? And to get you off track. Haggle over precise wordings of communications, minutes, and resolutions. Yeah, that's happened a lot. Refer back to matters decided upon at the last meeting and attempt to reopen the question of advisability. Advocate caution. And hey, let's be reasonable and urge your fellow conferees to be reasonable and avoid haste, which might result in embarrassments or difficulties later on. Right, so you advocate for this stuff, to delay a decision, to let the time run out. There's a lot of organizations that do that, especially charities that have been involved in some type of scandal, where they're waiting for the old leadership to die off or retire. Then everyone will forget it. The people who have problems die off too. I could name of a couple here that could do it, but I'd really piss people off. Be worried about the propriety of any decision. Raise the question whether they have actions, as is contemplated, lies within the jurisdiction of the group, and whether it might conflict with the policy of some higher echelon. So again, punt. You're kicking it over to someone else. That's punt with a P. All right. Managers and supervisors, what can they do? All right. To gum up the works. Number one, demand written orders. How many times have we done that? I do that all the time. Demand written orders on everything. I do it because the people and my wife does this also, because a lot of times when you're dealing with people, it's easier to read than it is to hear. Number one. Number two, I had a former business partner, so he's a former business partner, then wanted nothing in writing. And then whatever the discussion was, it could be whatever you or him ever wanted it to be, especially him, and deny. So we're not talking about, hey, holding people to their word and covering your butt and all of this stuff, CYA moves. We're just saying where they don't want to hear anything. They want everything in writing. Now, remember, this is 1944. Not a lot of people. No, I'm Gen Xer, right? So we came in the transition between typewriters and handwritten stuff, and computers and email. So a lot of people then would do written orders. So what would you hear? I can't read, and I still hear it. I can't read your handwriting. So you send them an email. Well, I don't understand what you want. And when you give it to, it was all baloney. that they couldn't understand handwriting. That's absolute baloney, and you know who you are if you're listening to this, right? Because the same people who you now give it in writing, right, and emails still say, well, we don't understand. Misunderstand orders. That's number 2. I stepped over it. So, hey, I misunderstood that. I don't know. Ask endless questions or engage in long correspondence about such orders. Quibble over them when you can. 3, do everything possible to delay the delivery of orders. Even though parts of an order may be ready beforehand, don't deliver it until it is completely ready. So that's another one. Delay. Put the other person under pressure. Right? This could be intentional or unintentional. I'm giving commentary in here as we do this. Don't order new working materials until your current stocks have been virtually exhausted, so that the slightest delay in filling your order will mean a shutdown. What do we call this in today's society? This is just-in-time delivery, just-in-time use, where we only have like 48 hours, and we found this out during the lockdowns. Stores only have 48 hours of stuff, right? So there's no reserve. So in 48 hours, 72 hours, everything's depleted in the supermarket, right? I'm going to go to a break here for a second because I'm wearing a sweater and I got to take it off here. So we're going to go to commercial break.
In the professional safety community, communication and planning are just a few keys to your program's success. The question many practitioners have is, where do I start? Dr. Jay Allen, the creator of the Safety FM platform and host of the Rated R Safety Show, has built a global foundation to help you along the way. Go to safetyfm.com and listen to some of the industry's best and most involved professionals, including Blaine Hoffman with the Safety Pro, Sam Goodman with the Hop Nerd, Sheldon Primus with the Safety Consultant, Jim Pozell with Safety Wars, Emily Elrod with Unapologetically Bold, and many others. As individuals, we can do great things, but as a team, we become amazing. Dial into safetyfm.com today and surround yourself with a powerful force of knowledge and support.
You are listening to Safety Wars. Tomorrow's Safety Today.
OSHA recordables, catastrophic losses, environmental disasters. You want answers? So do I. This is Jim Posel with Safety Wars.
That's my daddy.
Oh, that Jessica, I just love hearing that. My daughter Jessica finally got in on the action here, doing these promos. Hopefully we'll hear more from her in the future. So don't order working materials until, right? So just in time ordering. Order high quality materials which are hard to get. If you don't get them, argue about it. Warn that inferior materials will mean inferior work. And making work assignments, always sign out the unimportant jobs first. See that the important jobs are assigned to inefficient workers of poor machines. And so the people who don't know what they're doing, they get the good jobs. The people who know what they're doing get the menial jobs. The simple jobs, right, that are not really important. Insist on perfect work and relatively unimportant products. Send back for refinishing those which you have the least flaw. Approve other defective parts whose flaws are not visible to the naked eye. Make mistakes in routing so that parts and materials will be sent in the wrong place and plant. Oh, yeah, that happens, right? Especially with just-in-time delivery. We have, so when we're building warehouses, we have suppliers. No, we didn't even put up the sidewalls. So we have suppliers dropping off materials that we are going to need a year from now, right? Because someone in the supply chain put in an order based on a written schedule and didn't bother to call anybody to find out if it was appropriate. So we end up, again, you're messing with the supply chain. When training new workers, give incomplete or misleading instructions. This was my father's career, right? Where he came in, again, in the transition period of people who left when they were working at Western Electric in Kearney. And I have a safety award, cards and safety incentive here, never opened, from Kearney here when we were cleaning out my father's things. So he came in when he came in when the old generation, which were primarily European, right? They left Europe in World War I, were at the end of their working career. He started working in 57. So what happened was those folk, actually before that, I think it was 55, 54. Anyway, long story short, those people would not give you any instructions. They said, well, you're trained, you do the job. And you ended up having to learn by yourself. Now, the ulterior there were two things here. One, if you learned on your own, it was sink or swim. You learned on your own, you learned. You really learned things. You learned them the hard way. The second thing was this. They felt that if they gave you complete instructions and trained you how to do the job, they wouldn't have a job anymore. How often does that happen in our organizations? Happens a lot. Right? And that's one of the things with human organizational performance where you're not relying on one individual. You're not relying on one individual to do things. You're relying on the system and you're getting other people involved. That way, when the one person goes away, all that institutional knowledge or even if it's for the day, if you don't train anybody else to do the job, you don't have capacity and you have a more serious, you have a more dangerous workplace. You're going to say, oh, Jim, what do you mean more dangerous workplace? Well, a couple of accidents I've investigated. One was a fatality and two other workers were catastrophically hurt. The foreman was out that day. And the foreman was of this mindset. We're not going to give complete information. Because if we give complete information, that person is going to know how to do the job and leave. So I'm just going to be there and start telling them what to do. Happens, right? Happens with it. That person ended up dead because he never told them the why you do things and actually train them. And then you see, other accidents where you got people who won't learn. You can instruct them, train them, beg, plead, and everything else. They won't learn. And what happens? They get hurt too. I've worked a whole bunch of stuff there where it was truly and again, it's the employer's fault. No, my question always is, and I was talking to a colleague this week on this also, where he had a accident on site, and in the quote-unquote root cause analysis, he said, Jimmy, I'm forced to put in here with their hiring practices. Because they hired someone who was not qualified for the job, did not have the right attitude, and was, did not have the cognitive ability to do the job. Right? Couldn't do it. Not that he was cognitively impaired, but he just couldn't do it. So the company, again, you might say, well, Jim, you're talking bad apple. No, I'm not talking bad apple, where you're blaming the worker for things, but you're blaming management for putting workers into situations that they really should not be in. Right? That's what we're talking about with everything. To lower morale and with it production, be pleasant to inefficient workers, give them undeserved promotions, discriminate against efficient workers, and complain unjustly about their work. Well, how do we do that? Recently, I was dealing with somebody who's, 3 months later, the boss was crying, please don't leave, please don't leave, please don't leave. And then, 3 months later, the boss got a huge promotion and a huge raise. And what this was, right, and he was rewarding workers, everybody, right, here. This worker that he did this to, please only was a good worker, but he constantly rewarded the bad workers. And this one worker, he demanded more and more and more out of. Bigger production and everything else. Basically, set him up. Set himself up for a promotion. Now he's getting promoted, and everybody else, right, is a hellish working environment for the good workers. So, again, more morale destroyer. Hold conferences when there is more critical work to be done. How about that? You're out on a job working, you're doing a process working, and all of a sudden someone stops, we got to have a meeting. It's like, dude, I was right in the middle of this. Well, we got to have a meting. Yeah, but this is an unannounced meeting. Can we do it later? No, you're going to stop now and we're going to do a meeting. Right? Now, try to get everyone working back in the groove with everything. Right? Again, this is how you sabotage places. Multiply paperwork in plausible ways. Start duplicate files. Again, this is when we had physical files, but the same thing could happen with electronic files. Oh, well, you know what? What's our solution to doing this? Well, we're going to add another piece of paperwork. We're going to add another checklist. We're going to add another page to that JHA. We're going to require everybody to carry on their person. No, I'm guilty of this too. We're going to have people carry instructions on their person. More paperwork. Duplicate, and you know what? We're going to do duplicate files. Not only do you have to send whatever plan to this person, you got to send it to this person, this person, this person, and this person, rather than just putting it in an email and emailing it to a group. Or I set up drop boxes that everybody has access to, right? That needs them. So, hey, you're going to send all your paperwork to this one email address, and then someone on that end will sort it out. Much better way of handling things. So, that's one of the things that we do on all of our projects is that we go and we manage paperwork often, right? Among other things. Some of our clients, they have a lot of paperwork with good reason, right? For this, with good reason, covering liabilities and people not planning out their work like they should. So this verifies that. Regulatory stuff where you have to prove that you inspected equipment. You have audits, everything like that. All right. But and you need that. You need a certain amount of that. But how you manage it might be sabotaging towards, there may be, what am I saying? Multiply paper, right? So you're going to, adding more and more paperwork may not be the solution to anything. So what's another thing? Right? And I'll give you my red star or gold star speech. I call this. When we were in kindergarten, right? And this is when I was right there, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. You had a good assignment. You did your homework. You did whatever in class. And they put a gold star. They put a nice sticker. And then later on, they had the scratch and sniff stickers. And I still have my old ones, my old speech therapy books. And, smell them and everything else, and they still work. And what happens? You go through all this stuff, and all through your life, you're going and you're doing paperwork at school. You got a test, you got an A, you taking SATs and everything else. And, we're good at this paperwork. The people who don't excel at school don't do well with paperwork. So what happens? What happens is towards the end of your, when you go into the real, quote unquote, real world, you get out of college, which they still reinforce this. When there's a problem, what do you think that the solution is going to be? After you've been advocating paperwork all this time, what do you think it's going to be? Can you guess? More paperwork. Paperwork does not equal safer workplaces. I have clients that eliminate paperwork. Why are we keeping this paperwork? Why are we doing this? We still got to have some paperwork, but we're going to have something a little bit more effective. Can we simplify this, right? Can we make one or two people responsible for the paperwork? Can we make everybody responsible for the paperwork? Whatever works, right? Especially on construction sites with checklists and competent person stuff and everything else. Multiply the procedures, and number 13, multiply the procedures and clearances involved in issuing instructions, paychecks, and so on. See that 3 people have to approve of everything where 1 would do, right? How many times do you see that in organizations with multiple sign-offs? When, you get the executive signing off on everything. Well, the executive doesn't know what the hell's going on in the field. How often does that happen? Apply all regulations to the last letter. I'm not saying don't follow regulations, but sometimes they're onerous. Can we do? My question is that what the regulation says, or is that what you think it says? And often it's what people think the regulation says that makes things difficult. And it's truly a misunderstanding. That's where your letters of interpretation come in handy from OSHA, right? Letters of interpretation. industry standards, things of that nature. So here's one for office workers. Some of this applies, some of this doesn't. Make mistakes in quantities of material when you are copying orders. Confuse similar names. Use wrong addresses. Prolong correspondence with government bureaus. Misfile essential documents. Hard to do that nowadays, now that we have scanners, right? In making carbon copies, make one too few so that an extra copying job will have to be done, right? Tell important callers the boss is busy or taking on another telephone. Right. Another thing is don't answer those. Right. Today's equivalent. Don't answer emails or voicemail messages until the end of the day or the next day. Tell important callers the boss is busy or taking on another telephone or talking on another telephone. Want to piss the caller off, especially if it's a important one? You do that a couple of times. Hold up mail until the next collection. Spread disturbing rumors that sound like inside dope. Again, with the mail, I mean, I used to have a mail box place that I used that would do this, right? Thursday's mail got delivered on Friday, and Thursday's mail got there at lunchtime, sort of thing. So let's say you're an employee, right? 1, work slowly. 2, contrive as many interruptions to work as possible. 3, even if you understand the language, pretend not to understand instructions in a foreign tongue. This happens. This is how employees sabotage you. I had one guy who spoke English, but he refused to speak English in anyone's presence at work. He would only speak another language. And then one day he forgot himself, and we found out that he spoke English. And his boss said, and his boss was fooled for 15 years. And his boss hung out with him on the outside of work, too, which was funny. Pretend that instruction, and he understood and he spoke English perfectly, better than me, which isn't saying much. Pretend that instructions are hard to understand and ask to have them repeated more than once. Or pretend that you are particularly anxious to do your job and pester the foreman with unnecessary questions. Do your work poorly and blame it on bad tools, machinery, or equipment. Complain that these things are preventing you from doing your job right. Never pass on your skill and experience to a new or less skillful worker. Snarl up administration in every possible way. Fill out forms illegibly so that they will have to be done over. Make mistakes or omit the requested information in forms. If possible, join or help organize a group for presenting employee problems to the management. See that the procedures adopted are inconvenient as possible for the management, involving the presence of a large number of employees at each presentation, entailing more than one meeting for each grievance. Bringing up problems which are largely, I'm sorry, I have to laugh. Bringing up problems which are largely imaginary, and so on. Misroute materials and mix good parts with unusual scrap. How many times do people not want to throw anything out? And they keep the broken equipment, safety equipment, usually fall protection and electric cords. Again, we're going to talk about this at the end. It's 44 minutes after the hour here. General devices for lowering morale and creating confusion. Give lengthy and incomprehensible explanations when questioned. Report any spies or danger to the Gestapo or police. Okay, how many times do you see near-miss good catch reports or whatever you're calling them, and they're for things that never happened or conditions that aren't there? Or they call you, you're the safety person, they call you from one side of the plant to the other and everything else, so they got you running in circles, and then, things of that nature. This sounds like Saul Alinsky, real, right? I wonder if he got his ideas from this. Classified document. Act stupid. Be as irritable and quarrelsome as possible without getting yourself into trouble. Misunderstand all sorts of regulations concerning such matters as rationing, transportation, and traffic regulations. I would add today, safety. Complain against ersatz equipment of materials. That's equipment that are used as a substitute, often as an inferior one. Do not cooperate in salvage schemes. Demand new equipment. We had someone do that today on one of the projects here, demanding new equipment when the old equipment can easily be repaired. Boycott all movies, entertainments, and concerts, newspapers, or which are any way connected with the quizzling authorities. Stop conversation when Axis Nationals or Quislings enter a cafe. Ever enter into an office? One of my buddies and I were laughing about this yesterday because every time we walked into someone's office at this one place where we were both working on this one project, everybody shut up. It was hysterical. In public, treat Axis Nationals or Quislings coldly. Yeah, that happens. So here's my favorite. This is the last one I'm going to say. Cry and sob hysterically at every occasion, especially when confronted by government clerks, or I would say bosses or anything else. People get hysterical, crying, and everything else. So let's take a little break here, and I'm going to come back with some final commentary here. Is your safety training old, stale, and hackneyed? Is your safety trainer still preaching a warped version of behavior-based safety? How about safety training that actually addresses your hazards in your workplaces and is not standardized baloney from 25 years ago? Contact the Safety Wars team at safetywars.com or call Jim Posel at 845-269-5772. Remember, if you're receiving this message, you are the solution to unsafe workplaces.
You are listening to Safety Wars. Tomorrow's Safety Today. Safety Wars is streaming now.
SafetyFM.com.
All right, we are back. So where am I going with all this? Right? Well, this is going to be, I'm working on a PowerPoint presentation for this. I presented this to 2 other companies this week to get their feedback with this. One of them was during a training class for supervisory personnel. The other one was over lunch with my other client. I said, how does this sound? And you know what they said? Half of that stuff happens at certain places. One of them is a workplace that everybody here I've talked about before. Everybody, if you're a long-time listener, you've heard of it. All right, the same workplace. There are like half of the stories I have come from there. All right, simple sabotage. Right, what happens out there at these things? You get a lot of the stuff that happens here, mainly to piss off safety, and hopefully you're going to drop the issue, whatever it is. Delaying work. Oh, you know what? We can't address that. We got to get so and so involved. We got to get, and then that first day, we're going to get so-and-so involved. Sometimes it's coordinated, and then there is a conspiracy. Often it's not. It's just the way things are run at that company. And I think this is what Elon Musk was pointing out here. My own read into this, I don't know the man. Right? I just know him from his Twitter feed and some of the other stuff out there that he's done online. And, you know, what I've read in the newspapers and heard. Maybe this is what he was pointing out. One client I had said that half of the people at the company do this type of stuff. And the other half would do it if they knew about it. And they're learning. They're new employees. Where's this being learned, this kind of stuff? Right? That's the other thing. Because we do know that there are groups in this country currently, our competitors on the international market. It could be your competitor in an industry, another company, promotes stuff like this to gum up the works of their competitors. I can think of a couple of environmental regulations that are in place, where the biggest proponents of those regulations were people who already figured out the solution. So they were advocating other people figure out to come to the same solution and thus put their competitors at a disadvantage. Right? There's a theory in environmental policy here. I remember from back in the day in graduate school that innovation is driven by regulation. Yeah, so the necessity is regulation. We're going to pass regulations, so therefore people can figure out ways around the regulation, or we get better pollution controls in there because we're forcing people to do something. Just something to think about. Now my question is this, are we being sabotaged? Is American business being sabotaged? Foreign business, right? So with foreign business, are competitors actually trying to do this? I don't know, maybe through the university system, maybe through, well, we already know social media, the impacts, or when people have unrealistic expectations. They think they're going to be a TikTok star or an Instagram star or what's the other one? Snapchat or whatever new thing is out there. They're going to make a lot of money. And you have people devoting all their time to content on the internet. Not content to help people, but content to get clicks and everything else. To get likes and clicks and to generate cash. That's not building something. It's not spreading ideas to help people live a better life for some utility to improve themselves, right? Just like, everyone knows my favorite TV series, right? Star Trek. People are out there, right, in the 23rd and 24th and now 25th century, where they're out to improve themselves, make the world a better place, build things, explore intellectual questions, spiritual questions, anything like that. And what ends up happening is they spend their life on baloney. It's sabotage. We sabotage ourselves. You're your own worst enemy often. We have, and this is part of what we're doing, especially in the third season. We're going to be trying to expand our knowledge here, our knowledge base. A lot of what some people are, what we're going to be broadcasting in the very near future, people are not going to like, but we're going to, people say, well, you should give equal time. I'm going to say this. I am equal time. Safety FM, in a lot of ways, is equal time. There's plenty of resources out there on how to abuse your employees with safety systems that don't work. And you always hear, well, it doesn't work because the right people haven't tried it, or you're not trying hard enough. Things of that nature. So that's what we're about here on Safety Wars, motivating you, helping you out, and everything else. This whole exercise here on Simple Sabotage Field Manual, some of this, it's available online, right? A lot of this stuff happens in organizations. Maybe it's worth you passing this podcast along because it's going to be uploaded this weekend. Pass that podcast along to your management, to your supervisors, to your coworkers. Maybe, and we can have a conspiracy of safety out there where we all decide to work safe outside management. How do you like that? We all decide we're not going to get hurt. We're going to try to help each other, build each other up. Isn't that better off than what we're doing out here now, being adversaries? How many companies are adversaries? People are adversaries. I was talking to my boss at the university. By the way, I reinstated a lot of my programs, so I'm going to be there and doing things this semester. We talked about people being not motivated, especially the generations before us. And now I wonder, is that a legitimate complaint, or is it just because I remember my father and my grandfather complaining about the laziness in the youth. Am I now becoming my father or my grandfather here complaining about that? Or is it a legitimate thing? Because we got a lot of people out there. I think that they've read this, or somebody has read this, and it's all part of the culture now, the work culture. I don't know. Something to ponder, something to think about. So welcome to season 3 of Safety Wars. I appreciate all of the help that we're doing. And I'm going to point out, right, something, this is a very, what's the word I'm looking for? Relevant thing here with daylight savings time coming this way. So what is it? And I always mix this up. You, in the spring, you put the clocks ahead, right? I would double check that, right? You switch the clocks ahead. Basically, did you know that here I have it right here. Did you know that in that's the most dangerous day to drive is the Monday when they mess with the clocks, the daylight saving time hazards? Here, I'll read from my old podcast. Just a simple change in time, like daylight saving time, could actually cause accidents and injuries in the workplace and on the road the following Monday, right? So what are some of the hazards that are out there? We always hear about them, but there's actually some peer-reviewed data in the Journal of Current Biology. A chronological evaluation of acute effects of daylight savings time on traffic accident risk, published in January of 2020. The article is by Joseph Fritz. What does the article say? There are a lot of risks and consequences in the week following daylight saving time. Fatal traffic accidents increased by 6% from the previous week. So that comes out to about 28 fatal accidents. At work, now a lot of employees are basically half asleep this week, so it might be, worth it to basically ease up on people for the week, right? Try to figure out a way to manage it. So that's something you need to think about. So we'll see you on the rest of season 3 of Safety Wars, and we will go and see you on Monday. Welcome to season 3, and program number 200 is coming up.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.